Hi everyone, welcome to our panel discussion on how university sports has been affected by the COVID pandemic. I am joined by George Berry, who is the University of Gloucestershire Students' Union Sports Officer for the second year, Brett Davis, who is the Rugby League club captain at UOG for the second year in a row as well, and Lucy Rees, who is third year sports journalism student and sports scholar at UOG. So to kick things off, I'm going to go to you, as club captain at UAD, kind of kind of go for the sore spot as well from last year when COVID hit it. How did you feel when varsity got cancelled?
Well, as rugby league, we don't have a varsity, but obviously we are very much involved with obviously Team Gloss and everyone else that is involved with it, and it's a massive talking point for the whole of anyone that plays sport at uni. And sort of having to take the decision to cancel it obviously isn't something that's taken lightly with everyone that plays sport, but obviously given the pandemic, it was something that had to happen. So I think it does affect players sort of quite a lot if that is sort of, especially if they're leaving that year. So if you're leaving that year, that's your sort of your final say, like your final sort of your last chance to play for your club. So obviously a lot of the clubs that were sort of hoping to and then had to turn around and say no to their members. Obviously, like we support all the clubs, so for us it's a massive social thing in terms of like the aspect of the social side of varsity and the competition obviously between Gloucester and Worcester. So I think when it cancels that, it does, people are obviously, especially the third years, I think it affects them more so than anyone.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily just like you said. Obviously, rugby league don't play in varsity, but like you said, it's a big community thing. Like I know I'm on music, and we don't necessarily have loads of sports students, but there's still that buzz in the air because there's obviously always going to be that rivalry, like rather be a cheese, everything like that. So I think a lot of people, like you said, were a bit disappointed. Well, not even just a bit disappointed, quite disappointed about it. Going to you, George. What was your view of the situation, obviously as sports officer?
It was just sad, really, to be honest. Like, it's this thing that gets hyped up all year and coming through. I know how much it means to people. Like, I've seen it from different sides. Like, I'm part of cricket, so I've sort of trained and been around the lads as they get ready for varsity, and I know how seriously they take it. And sort of being there on the day is amazing. I've been part of it as an official. Like, I was on the referee scholarship, so I got to referee the women's game a couple of years ago, the women's rugby game, which was just a mint experience at Moseley. And I was been on the line for the 1 year before at Six Ways, and the number of different people varsity affects is massive. Like, the journalism students getting placement hours, the media students doing TV work, like, and to have to cancel it was just sad. And it was very strange because the week before everyone had been at Cheltenham races and it was all this thing won't stop us too much, and then a week later we were cancelling everything, and it was sort of, it was very difficult to get your head around.
Yeah,
And this thing that, oh, it'll just be 3 weeks, and here we are sort of, well, more than a year later now. And yeah, it was just that there were a lot of people who I know how much varsity meant to them in their last year,
yeah,
and they were people who I knew quite well because obviously I've been here for a few years now. And yeah, it it was just sad because I saw people being upset, and it's upsetting that you can't help them out of that situation. But at the end of the day, like we've said to everyone through this year, it's really hard to say no to things, but we have to do what's best for their safety. Like, do you
yeah,
want to play a rugby game and risk going home and accidentally giving a family member COVID, or do you just have to go, like, this is really a shame, but we have to do what's the best sort of for people's health and safety?
yeah. Because I know I'd spoken to Lucy because obviously I'm part of Tone, and I think I'd spoken with Lucy about Tone coming along to the cricket varsity game and doing like the music and sound and stuff. So obviously that was massively disappointing for us because Tone, we always, especially last year, we were always looking at ways to get involved with sports and have that crossover between the sports teams and societies. So, like you said, it affected so many different people. Going to you, Lucy, how would you say COVID has affected the scholarship program? Because I know you're really involved in that.
Yeah, so normally we have like weekly or fortnightly kind of meetings with like a high profile official. And obviously this year everything's online, so you don't really get that like community feel that we used to in like my second year in that. So it has changed it massively.
Yeah.
And of course, like S&C as well has been on and off, and then obviously as well games with people officiating, they're on and off as well.
Yeah, so obviously with like scholars, it's like a lot. Sometimes it's like the behind the scenes stuff that people aren't always going to see that really affects it.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of stuff we do kind of behind closed doors and stuff isn't really happening at the minute.
Yeah. George, obviously recently you've announced how varsity is going to go this year. What are you looking ahead to?
So just basically to be able to get to, if I can get my words out, being able to just give people sport, give people something to be happy about, give people something to celebrate. It's been a really rough 12 months. So giving a sort of celebration at the end in this year's varsity, which people will be finding out more about in the coming weeks, is a sort of, the theme of varsity this year is a celebration. It's a thank you NHS and key workers varsity. And obviously we've had to make some really, really difficult decisions this year about who is involved and who won't be involved, because of a varying amount of factors, from sort of facilities, things being COVID secure, cost and stuff like that. So we've had to make some really difficult decisions, but just getting anyone involved is better than nothing. And we're sort of really excited to be able to do that. And we're going to be giving upwards of 40 students sort of placement and work experience opportunities, so from the media side and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I know obviously for me being a media school student, with my professional experience module, I basically had to do all of that online, and hopefully going to do a master's in journalism next year. It's very difficult to be getting this experience, so I know people are really going to hopefully value those experiences they can get towards the end of the year. Lucy, going back to you, as you were cricket marketing secretary last year, obviously going into first lockdown, how did you manage the social accounts during that lockdown?
Yeah, we had a bit of a gap in content, and then I think one of us in the like committee group chat was like, oh, why don't we do some of these story takeovers, and they kind of went down well on like Instagram, and then the Twitter side of things, we done like a bit of a mock varsity match. We just kind of kept people involved, really.
Yeah. Cool. So I know I would see some of them either through my personal Instagram account or the Tone radio social account, because obviously we interact with a lot of the sports clubs and societies at the uni. And I think one thing I enjoyed from being somebody from outside of university sport was just learning a bit more about the sports clubs, because I will acknowledge I don't necessarily know as much about uni sport as others will do. And I think it's quite nice for people to get more of an understanding of sometimes how the clubs work, how the social interactions work, things like that. So Brett, going back to you, rugby league have obviously been really interactive on social media and stuff this year. Could you just explain some of what's been going on?
Yeah, so I think obviously given the first lockdown, our priority sort of went to the members that we had, but like you say, it's more of a sort of the sports team giving back to the community as well. So you've got to be trying to do things that obviously interact with everyone. So we did things like we were putting videos up of people to guess what happened, etc. So like it was just giving people something to interact with, and it was using the sports teams that have sort of these members and have everyone that they already have in their club to actually help out within the whole community of Gloss, like Team Gloss, regardless of if you play sport or not. So I think we sort of focused heavily on getting sort of as much out as we could to remind the boys like sort of the club that they were part of, and obviously what other people may potentially be missing. And yeah, it was mainly sort of just a celebration sort of throughout the time, I think, was the main thing that we were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back to, like you said, you had the what happened next, and I think there was a particular video of George, and we all know the one I'm thinking of, and I just remembered it. with a particular
me getting absolutely sat down on the first hit of the game.
Yeah, I just remembered that now and I'm just laughing.
I'd like to talk about the other one that they put up late that game of my excellent assist, by the way. But
Your kick, yeah, we had to make up for it. We thought, well, if we're going to put one of him getting hit, we thought we might as well make him look a bit good.
Yeah, I think I just remembered back to that, and I think I probably spoke to Lucy about it, and we just think it's quite nice for people to see things like that on the socials, because people might not necessarily be going or be able to go to these sports games, so it's nice for people to see what's going on at them. Also, go back to you, Brett. Rugby league at UAG player is at the top level in sport. So you were club captain last year in the 19 to 20 season. So how did you come into the role last year, and how did your preparation differ for this year compared to last?
So obviously I joined, so I'd only been at the union at the club for a year and then took on the role of CC, but it seemed a lot easier throughout my first year because I could work with, like, directly with the previous captain. So Will, I could work with him, and I learned quite a lot from him, and obviously was able to see the way that he led the team and sort of pick up the things that worked and understood exactly how everything like transition and stuff. So for me, obviously coming into it in the second year, I had all that behind me, it was very good for me. But the committee that were obviously being elected, we did it all over Zoom. It was all a bit, they obviously knew each other very well anyway, purely because we were so far through the season. So that was quite a bonus. So everyone sort of had a rough idea of who everyone was, what they're about. But I feel like it's now sort of, given that we've been in lockdown for so much and we're coming around to that point again, there's a lot of lads that might not have shown their true sort of leadership potential, their like sort of their true colours that the boys would have seen, that obviously now going into committee is going to be hard to, like, obviously hopefully, fingers crossed, touch wood, the roadmap sort of stays as it is and we can actually be encouraging that and sort of face to face speaking to the people that are going into the roles, but doing as much over Zoom and as much over sort of the phone as we have, in comparison to being able to have like meetings and things in our first year, and like an AGM in person, like trying to do it over Zoom with like 40 lads it's chaos and it's hard to adapt to. You've got to sort of change everything completely, and like I say, it's people skills and how people interact with each other is sometimes a lot easier to pick up, especially when you're playing, like, we haven't played enough sport with each other, like we haven't played games, like that's where a lot of it comes from in sort of rugby clubs and things like that. So obviously last year was, well, sort of going into my first year of CC was a lot easier because you could showcase them skills at training on the field, etc. But like now it's just a bit harder, I think, to get that across to everyone.
Yeah. Going just all of it, sport is obviously, like we've covered, sport is such a tight-knit community at UAG. George and Brett, as you are both leaving this year, what sort of footprint do you want to leave behind? So if we go to you first, George.
I guess my thing was I want to leave it better than I found it, which I know sounds really big-headed, and it sounds like I think I can change the world. I don't, but I think lots of people doing little positive things can make a massive impact. And there are things we tried to clamp down on and things we tried to grow. And we're very sort of segregated at our uni. As much as we all link in with each other, we're still very separate. And when you think about what is the brand, what is Team Gloss, people just think, oh, Team Gloss, like, there's no substance to it. There's nothing behind it. And I want to leave behind something that makes people proud to have been here, or start that tradition of having that pride, because I'm immensely proud of my 6 years here and getting to wear the badge. And I'm so grateful that sport's going to open up again so I can wear the badge competitively a couple more times, hopefully. And that, and putting in the honours board and making a legacy, making it something that you want to be a part of and you want to have your name as part of it, and you're proud to say, I was there, I did that, I helped to do that, I helped to grow that place, and really sort of create the brand of Team Gloss, and also create a culture where it's okay to talk about your mental health struggles, where it's okay to, where you can go to people and where you can feel safe in your sexuality or your gender or whoever you are and whatever it is, that for whatever reason people might discriminate against you, they won't, and you are sort of part of one big safe family and a safe place with a safe culture, and that is the really big things I really tried to work on. But yeah, it's that arrogance, isn't it? And it's that sportsman's mentality to every time you put a shirt on, leave it better than when you found it. And it's for me, I'm very honoured to have the job I've got, and I've had some amazing people do my job before me, and each of them have left it a little bit better than when they found it. And I can only hope that sort of when I've left, I will have done that bit too.
Brett?
Yeah, I think definitely sort of advancing sort of with everything that's happening. I think that's been the key focus. So like George said about people talking about their mental health and stuff like that, there's a massive stigma behind rugby lads, and yeah, get over it, get on with it. Like, and that's not what we've been about as a club sort of throughout the 2 years. It's very much been putting an emphasis on checking up on your mates, especially over COVID. It's literally been you're okay to not be okay. So I think that is something that has sort of been ingrained into the club sort of over the couple of years. And like there were sort of things that I picked up. So when I sort of joined and I was here, things like our fundraising and stuff, you're a club of 40 odd people, and you like this year, obviously we've sort of launched our Goes Global campaign to try and earn some money. Like we're sort of on track to get that done, and there's going to be a massive push come October. We're looking to like raise $6,000 and stuff. So that is sort of utilizing the team to like make a difference. Like even though it's a small difference in comparison to some, it's still a difference. And like George said, if everyone is doing little bits, and I think that's something that Team Gloss has massively done well over this lockdown. They've all the teams have really pulled together and thought, actually we can run, we can move. We're the lucky ones that we haven't like got anything stopping us. Let's use it for good. Let's challenge ourselves. Let's really push to donate money to the people that are obviously in need of it. It's like George said about the sort of thank NHS and stuff like that. Loads of clubs have obviously got t-shirts and stuff like that, donated a certain amount of money from that to the NHS. And I think that's a massive thing that Team Gloss should be like hugely proud of. And that is coming from like all individual clubs as well. So I think it just, the environment that we're in as club captains and as players and part of Team Gloss, it doesn't need to be said. Like, so it's nothing like they're not saying, right, we need everyone to go and raise money. That is purely out of each club's own decision. So I think that's a massive thing that has been sort of really banged into the club since I've been here.
Yeah, you mentioned UGRL Goes Global. Could you just give a bit more of an explanation as to what it actually is?
So obviously when we went into our first lockdown, we decided that we wanted to keep the boys all active. Obviously there's a lot of things going on with sort of like weekly challenges and things on Strava, and being UGRL, we didn't want to do things in any small way, shape or form. And the Rugby League World Cup is coming up this October. So we looked at the distance and sort of looked at the time we had, and we thought, okay, let's average out what we can do with the amount of people that we could get involved, and ended up traveling the distance between all the countries that were competing in the Rugby League World Cup. So that's so men's, women's, and the wheelchair competitions. So it's covered all the countries, ended up sort of like 1.5 times around the world or something. So we've just covered the distance of the equator now, but we've still got a massive sort of lot to go, which we're going to then finish it off with about 500k bike ride from here to Sheffield, I think, or Newcastle. We're going to go up to Newcastle. So that's like the key focus of the end of it. But that's where obviously we're going to try and recruit most of our donations. But I think we've raised about £1,100 so far. So it's been a massive pull for the boys. And it's not just the current boys either. It's the playing staff. So all of our like physios, everyone that's helped out with the club, and all of our old boys as well. So it's really bringing in as many people from sort of Team Gloss as we can.
Yeah, I know one thing I know because I used to work with the one and only Sam Gilder under the prom, and I know he's finally going to cut the rat tail off.
Yeah, that thing's got to go.
Best money I've ever spent was that donation. And it's like you said, you just see like clubs and even individuals within clubs doing their bit to give back to the community. And from my knowledge, it is something that is part of being a member of Team Gloss and having that, like you said, very tight-knit community feel. Going to you, Lucy, you're staying at UAG to do the master's degree in sports PR and communications. Do you think COVID has had an impact on the decision you made?
Yeah, kind of. So the job I want really. It's like out there, but they're not really employing a lot of them. So I thought, why not enhance my skills for a year until obviously the industry opens back up kind of fully and starts employing again.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for taking part in this panel. I know it's a bit of time out of your day, and I do really appreciate it. I was going to say, obviously, once again, big thank you to all of you for taking part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This isn't a new challenge. We faced them before. We know their strengths and they know ours. We are all equals when we step out. But make them remember you. Make them remember that you weren't afraid, that you set the bar high and then rose higher. Success is born from opportunities. This is your opportunity. Your year. Your time to achieve, raise up and succeed. This is the end goal. What we've been working towards all season within your grasp. Take it, shape it. Your opportunity to triumph on the field, on the pitch, and in the hearts of Team Gloss. It may not be easy. It may not be the ideal conditions or the perfect day. The adversity we have to face and what trials we come into contact with provide us with the opportunity to prove what we can overcome. The opportunity to succeed in the face of the highest challenge. And if we find ourselves down on our luck, how we move on and overcome the adversity. Together, that marks the strength and achievement of the team. And we are one team. We are Team Gloss.